Hi, this is Seamless, and today I have one of these how to bases where I made a base in a track that I'm working on, I kind of like, and I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to show you how I made the track, base, how to make the base. The base I'm going to talk about is these, it's down here somewhere, but it's the ones that come around with these green automation clips. And it has to do with Harmor's custom resonance mapping that you can do, and I'll show you all about that. But first, here's the track. It's extraordinarily loud, so be ready for that. Playing in three, two, one. All right. So let's look at this bass all isolated and stuff. And that's this guy. So what's actually happening here is that I'm automating the resonance here. You see that I have the filter up in the center, but I also have a custom shape, and I'll explain that in a second. But watch what's happening in the viewer here. It's kind of a weird shape going on there, isn't it? Well, that's because it has to do, once again, with most things that are awesome in Harmor, of how the fact that Harmor is really an additive synthesizer mimicking subtractive things. And one of the things it mimics are filters. And the filters, as a result, the filters can have custom shapes. So what I did here first is I went into filter 1, which is by default the one that's active. And I went into custom shape 1. If you right click it, it'll show it. And then I just made it flat. It was already flat. I tried some stuff, but brought it back to flat. And that means that no matter where I move this, the primary filter won't do anything. However, where this position is also determines where the resonance is, because traditional filters have the resonance at the cutoff point, so it accentuates the location of the cutoff, and that creates that kind of ringy sound with a resonance or Q value. And yeah, so now notice this is a 0 to 100 graph right here for filters. If I go up to, I can also make a custom shape for resonance, and you can also do things like make the width. You can move the resonance away from the cutoff point, and you can also self-oscillate the resonance, which means it'll actually make a note where it is presently. I don't usually use that, but that's an option if you want it. So you right-click it, and you have this graph, which is not a 0 to 100, but in fact a negative 100 to 100. And that's pretty, when you see this shape and you see this action here, you start to realize that's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious what's going on, what it does there. So now the cool thing about being able to do this is that as you see the title here, it's phase verb. That's because this actually was one of the bases that I made in the last how to base. And well, 2 how to bases. I forget how many whatever. It was the one where you do phase wobbles by moving up the detune value, and it creates the wobble because of phase cancellation in bass frequencies. And the kind of thing that I ended up doing was that it would accentuate the higher frequencies, causing before the distortion, which I have engaged, and it would cause that kind of really high, shrill, metallic bass sound. And so that was really cool. However, it didn't really have a high degree of control. So this is a way that you can actually have the same effect, but with perfect control, and you also don't have to worry about it getting out of tune as it would you were using a detune function, despite the fact that the fundamental was still the same. So fun fact about this is that the filters have a KV track option, which means that and instead of the 0 to 100 value being from the top of the spectrum to the bottom of the spectrum, it's from the top of the spectrum to the bottom of the note. So if you're playing a bass note at like 50 hertz, the cutoff would go down to 50 hertz instead of 0 hertz, that kind of thing. So that's helpful because that also means that will also tune the position of the resonant frequency. And so it'll keep the bass in tune. It'll keep the bass and also the metallic Rorsch sound in tune the whole time. However, if you don't want that, you can just bring the KB tracking back to 0. And then it'll be in the same position always. And such. So this is actually pretty basic manipulation. You basically just made this graph here that caused the sound to go on the way it is, and then it's being distorted. It's pretty important that you distort it, because if you don't, it doesn't really sound quite like that. And of course, that's the point of distortion. It's like a very, what was it, flat hat, or was it hill? It was hill. Ah, hill. There it is. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So there's really not much else to this. This is all possible as a result of Harmor being additive subtractive. So that's, I'll never be able to say that word. Synthesizer. Ah, it's a new world. And letting you make your own resonance shape, which, I mean, you're not going to do that in any filter ever forever. If you wanted to do this without Harmor, what you could do is you would have your sound, you know, let's say it's a freaking citrus. Sure, why not? Welcome to citrus. You know, you want to make your basic sound, and then you that's a triangle. I want a saw. I want 2 saws. I'm greedy. That's some feedback, because my mic is not, I mean, I actually have it not turned down all the way enough. So then, you know, make a sound. And then also make an EQ. Now, a lot of times you hear people being like, oh, you can automate EQs, and you totally can. So it's just like, you know, you can make a peak, make another peak. And then you can just automate these points, much like I did the resonance. And then once you distort that and put it together, it should sound similar. I really have no idea, because I've never done it, because I don't really need to, because I own Harmor. But that's a method of getting around this if you don't have Harmor. It's that you can just you can automate EQ points. And you can do that in EQ2. You move it around here, but you move around these, and you can automate that. You can automate the position, top and down, up and down, left and right, and also width, bandwidth. And all that together, you can make some pretty complicated modulation, and that's, you know, traditionally how people tend to do these things. It's just for EQ modulation or FM synthesis to get the kind of sound. I, in fact, made a video before about how to make a high pitch kind of shrieky sound with FM synthesis. That was How to Base 18, and so yeah, there's lots of ways to do this. But Harmor is just the most well integrated piece of software ever made. It just really is. That's just so cool. All right. I hope you liked that. Hope it was useful for you. If you have any questions, you can let me know, and I will try to answer them. And have a nice day.